in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You like that? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a terrific Tuesday evening. We indeed have a loaded show for you guys tonight. The SEC meetings, the spring meetings, are underway out there in Destin, Florida. With it comes plenty of headlines and talking points. Greg Sankey talked to the media today. Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart, Billy Napier spoke to the media today. DeBoer was inevitably asked about Nick Saban. Greg Sankey was inevitably asked about House versus NCAA and the titanic plates that are constantly shifting out in the world of college football. Of course, he was asked about that. And Kirby Smart and Billy Napier were inevitably asked about the Jaden Rashada lawsuit, which is where we start tonight's show. And being asked about the Rashada lawsuit brings us these quotes from the Florida head coach, Billy Napier. Quote, "I think it's important to know I can't comment due to litigation, but I am confident in our legal team. I'm comfortable with my actions and thankful for the university's support." I think it should be known for the record, not that it matters what I believe or what I think, but I think I should put it out there. For the record, I'm confident in their legal team at Florida as well. I'm confident in Billy Napier's legal team. I'm confident that they will ultimately, I guess if there is a win in this, ultimately they will win this lawsuit or will probably not have to lose it or pay out massive amounts of money. Assuming Billy Napier was just stupid. If Billy Napier was moronic, they probably lost it or will lose this lawsuit. What do I mean by that? If Billy Napier was stupid, he just called Jaden Rashada's dad and told him, hey, sign with us, we'll give you $1 million. If Billy Napier was just stupid, he would have involved himself in the NIL recruitment of Jaden Rashada via phone calls. That's if he's stupid, which I might be stupid. And if he is stupid, nothing's going to come of that. It's just phone conversations. That's he said, she said. Now, if he's moronic, this gentleman would have put this conversations via text message. There would be some type of paper trail to tie him to this conspiracy that he's ultimately being sued for. I don't believe Billy Napier to be moronic. I believe him to possibly be stupid, and that's that. And look, my problems from jump haven't been with Billy Napier's involvement in this situation. Again, I think a lot of college football coaches are stupid under this, thought process, right? Getting involved in NIL recruitments via a telephone call or promising something over a phone call or promising something when a player is in your office or whatever. I believe there's a lot of stupid college football coaches. I don't believe there to be a lot of moronic football coaches. The stupidest part of this story for me from Florida's involvement doesn't have to do with whether or not Billy Napier was involved. It has to do with the fact that they offered $14 million to a high school quarterback. That, to me, is the stupidest part of all this. That, to me, would cause real high moments of concern for me if I were, for example, a Florida fan. Because let's put it this way. Miami offered that kid $9.5 million, even though Ruiz has completely denied all such reports. That's what we're led to believe. That's what this lawsuit proclaims, that Florida conspired to get him out of this $9.5 million contract that he was going to be promised with Miami. That's bad enough, right? But it's really bad that Florida offered this kid 45% over market value. That's the real bad problem, right? Not only did you offer him $14 million or $13.85, you offered a high school football player $14 million. That's really bad. You gave him 45% more than your competitor. That's worse. That's way worse in a world and in a sport where we are now, at least until revenues and revenue sharing gets to us. This last iteration, these last 3 or 4 years of college football have all been about managing your own salary cap that, is only determined by how much resources are made available to you. So you're going out and spending 45% more money on a football player than your competitor was. That alone is bad resource allocation. That alone causes real signs of concern. So whether or not you want to talk about whether or not this is the last string for Billy, or whether you want to talk about whether or not he's going to lose this lawsuit, whatever you want to talk about, my main concern from jump has been the fact that you tried to give a high school football player $14 million. That to me is nuts. Welcome to tonight's show. We got a great one for you. Like I said, Greg Sankey gave his comments on the future of college football, talked about rev sharing, talked about House vs. NCAA, talked about Title IX, talked about the 85 scholarship limits, talked about injury reports potentially coming to the SEC. We're going to talk about all that for you guys tonight. Potentially more bowl games coming to us, because that's what we want. We want more bowl games to watch during the holiday season. Realignment has caused a lot of differences in college football. It's also brought us new quote-unquote rivalries and new matchups that we're going to see on a relatively perennial basis. We'll talk about that tonight. Teams that absolutely need to make the college football playoff will be brought to the forefront tonight. And of course, Kirby's going to give us the details on how college football programs go about scheduling. I don't mean this sarcastically. I'm interested to find this out. This is something I don't know about.
Well, it's not programs themselves. It's how TV networks decide who carries what game.
Still interested?
Slightly less interested, but that's my fault. But I think this is going to be fun either way, just based on how they do this. From now that you tell me it's TV-based, I kind of have an inkling of how they go about it, and it is really interesting. And I think the fans of college football need to know about it. Before we get into tonight's show, I wanted to give a quick shout-out to our friends, our lovely supporters over at Prize Picks. I'm doubling up. You know, I think I might make this the Josh Pate White tee. Oh. What do you think? Rocking the PP
as long as
out here on a daily basis? Nah, the BO is part of it. You know, only wash it if we lose on a Prize Picks play.
Okay, I said, bro, the season's a long way away.
No. Only, because I'm a daily fiend for the PP. Only washing it if I lose.
So is that sure going to be pretty clean? Or
Well, the folks over at Prize Picks sent me multiple.
Okay.
So we don't have to worry about a daily rotation.
Okay.
But nonetheless, thinking about it. Shout out to Prize Picks. Head over to prizepicks.com today. Use promo code Brooks. You get a 100% deposit match. What does that mean? You put up to $100, you'll get matched instantly in your account today only using promo code Brooks. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Like, subscribe, and rate and review. And I put out a little feeler in the Discord chat today. I'm genuinely curious because I think getting feedback from your customer is oftentimes how you go about improving yourself at the highest and most efficient rate. Put a feeler out. How do you absorb our content? Are you a live watcher? Do you watch us on rewatch? Are you a podcast listener? And majority, I knew this based off the stats, but majority of our audience watches us upon rewatch. They are not live audience viewers. They got other things going on, whether it be Pate's stream, jealous, or whether it be in life in general, whether it be wife and kids. Nonetheless, you got other shit going on. If you miss any portion of the broadcast, we are available to rewatch whenever you want over on YouTube. We also have podcasts available however you get your podcasts. So make sure you check us out over there, hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing over here. All right. Greg Sankey spoke to the media today, hit on a lot of issues, kind of gave an opening statement very similar to what he will do at SEC Media Days. These are just the SEC meetings down there, spring meetings down there in Destin. I think this is just a general reason for coaches to maybe go down to Florida. Maybe. I don't know how much actual delegation they do down here and how much problem solving they get done down here. But Sankey hit on a bunch of stuff like this. I told you the other night, the settlement between the NCAA and the House lawsuit going on right now will not only give us like a general governance and a general kind of like blueprint of how college football will govern itself moving forward, but it also kind of opens up the doors for Congress and the government to actually help out with nationwide legislation on this, because the government has never wanted to help out college football in particular, not just the NCAA, but really college football. Congress and the government has never wanted to help because they've always realized that they violate antitrust laws. So if you violate antitrust laws that we as a government enforce, then we're not going to help you out by any stretch of the imagination. Well, House versus NCAA will remove all of these antitrust lawsuit violations for the NCAA, so we assume. So the settlement of House versus NCAA will ultimately open up governance to actually assist. This is something that Sankey talked about today. Quote, I think Congress still has an opportunity to use the structure of this settlement to enact legislation to strengthen the further future of college sports. Sankey said that he had been to Washington, D.C. at least 5 times this year. He added that entering his 10th year as the SEC commissioner, one significant change is the number of members of Congress in his phone. He described the effort evolving from a, quote, curiosity to a, quote, little bit of interest, and that the education of what's needed would be a continuing repetition. He went on to say, quote, I would welcome action between now and the election of this year, obviously being in November. Quote, most people with whom I converse say that's unlikely, and so your educational process will continue post-election, and it will depend on who's in leadership of each party within the House and Senate, where the majority lies, and who occupies the White House. Those realities guide conversations. So he went on to say, so as much as it's unpredictable, I think it will still be unpredictable as we approach, this election. This was something you and I got put onto in Indianapolis. We don't want to reveal any sources, but we had a conversation with a gentleman in a bar one night.
Yep.
And he was like, hey, don't be surprised if this becomes a political movement. If one of these parties jumps on, hey, vote for us, we'll save college football.
Oh, yeah.
It's happening. It's going to get brought up. I would imagine I know which party will align itself with saving of a sport in college football, one that resides predominantly in the South.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's going to be on any dockets, but it will probably be a talking point of, hey, elect me. I can get everybody aligned and we can save college football. I think there was one famous example of a president saving the sport of college football in American history. Is there not?
I'm not.
There literally is. One of the presidents had a football game on the White House lawn. I think it was Roosevelt. I think it was Teddy. I think Teddy saved football. Football was having people die playing football, and the sanctions were like, hey, football needs to, we need to quit playing football. And Teddy was like, don't worry. Football's cool. Football's good. We're going to play football on the White House lawn, and we're going to save football. You're looking this up. It's coming to me now. I'm 100% right on this.
Yeah, it was Teddy Roosevelt. I didn't know this.
I didn't either.
You learn something new every day.
I'll have to read up on it later.
I wonder if the audience knew.
So
they're not helping me out in the chat, so I would assume they didn't.
So I'm going to save college football is this year's version of I'm going to pay teachers more.
Yeah, save the whales.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to save the whales. Teachers need more money,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. But no, I'm with Sankey. This being an election year, I don't know if this helps. It definitely doesn't help. I don't know if it hurts, but it definitely doesn't help the idea that you're going to rush this into, any type of help from the government in between now and November.
I mean, basically what he said sounds like he still has no idea what's going on. And it's going to seem that way for a while. So I don't know how much of a movement you're going to see when it comes to political aspirations, but there's definitely going to be mentions of it like, hey, we're going to be the ones to save it. So
All right, so obviously there's a lot of discussion about athletes becoming employees, how we'll go about doing this, whether or not athletes should be garnering employment status, all this stuff. He commented about it today saying, quote, "The breadth of the settlement is intended to give us a path forward, provide a level of clarity about the future that doesn't embed employment automatically." Sankey said that no student has come up to him and said that he or she wants to, quote, "be taxed like a lawyer." There are those who advocate for the reality, Sankey said, that takes me back to a fundamental statement, which is there's no better time to be a student athlete than right now in the history of college sports. No better time. And again, they're not calling me saying I want to be an employee. This is an old negotiation tactic. My employment body has never complained to me about any of these things we got going on. Why would they? It's never been a better time to work for me at the NCAA and play college football. It's never been a better time. This is an old spin zone right here. Now, I don't disagree. It's never been a better time to be a college athlete. You're making more money now than you ever have before. However, do you really think student athletes got Greg Sankey's phone number? Because I don't think they do. No wonder they're not blowing you up. They don't have access to you, Brody. I'm assuming, highly doubt Jaden Daniels could have called Greg Sankey last year and bitch, moan, and complain about not making enough money.
Yeah, if he wanted to, it wouldn't have been an easy process. It's definitely not as simple as let me pick up my phone, click one button, and I have Greg Sankey on the line.
No.
It would have been, hey, can someone contact Greg Sankey, say that I want to have a phone call with him, set up a date and time, and for the 10-minute window I get with him, I can talk about college football.
Exactly. All right, so that was it wasn't even a very hard pressing issue. I just thought the comment was funny.
Yeah.
I ain't got nobody blowing me up complaining. Really? I wonder why. They probably physically can't. Another topic of discussion, one that we threw up flags about, just not even flags, threw up our hands with I don't friggin' know. Ask somebody smarter. Title IX. How will these revenue sharing efforts, how will they impact Title IX? Everybody knows that Title IX is an A must happen to B discussion. Okay. If I give out 85 scholarships to men, I have to give out 85 scholarships to women. If I spend $100 million on men's sports, I have to spend $100 million on women's sports. It is a tit for tat type of measurement. That is Title IX. Well, revenue sharing throws a real big wrench into this whole entire situation. How are you going to rectify it? This is something Sankey was asked about on, what is today? Tuesday. Sankey also dove into a number of other issues that will loom over the SEC meetings, including how the conference will approach the revenue distribution from the settlement while complying with Title IX. Sankey pointed out that the SEC has won 4 national championships this year, all in women's sports. He said that the league has to, quote, wrestle with this new piece. He went on to say, our trends have been to provide some equity. This is a very different world. I expect we elicit opinions, perspectives, and we've got time to learn those perspectives, and then we're going to have to work through what that means from a decision-making standpoint. Long story short, he don't know.
Yeah,
you look on your face, he don't know.
Yeah.
They ain't got a clue.
That was the most political answer you could have given.
It wasn't even.
We're going to look into it. It's very important.
It was 14 words of I don't know, and everybody reads it that way. So he didn't even have a prepared statement of, well, maybe this is an avenue. Like in every other discussion, Sankey has given us his thoughts, right? SEC realignment. Are you going to go to 8 or are you going to go to 9? Well, he kind of let everybody know that 9's more of a repetitive, even, fair balance situation. Are you going to go to divisions or are you going to go to non-divisions? He didn't tell everybody, but he kind of let everybody know the rest of the conferences are going non-divisions. We want to be compliant. Well, eventually that's where we went. We didn't even get a tea leaf here. We got nothing. The tea leaf is I don't know, and that doesn't make me feel very good.
He could have at least lied and been like, "We've got something in the works.
We got something in the works. We don't think it's going to be a hang up. Like, well, give me something." He gave me nothing. All right, and then the other thing he talked about here. There's been a lot of talk, and this is why it's very important to not only, I'm not justifying or glorifying what we do, but it's very important that when these storylines come to you, they're presented properly like this. The 85 scholarship limit thing, everybody that's asked me questions about it in our Discord and on social media and in passing have talked to me about this as if it is so, like as if it is happening, like it's coming. 85, hard cap, no walk-ons. This is the way everybody's kind of approached this. It can't be further from the truth. This is a something that they let out as a possibility. Other conferences are talking about maybe bringing this into play as a competitive balance structure, as a competitive balance, proposition. This isn't even close to being implemented. I've told you that the moment this is even close to implementing, you will see drastic measures in terms of roster realignment, okay? Teams like in the SEC, just off the top of my head, Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, they're all over 90. They're all over 95 right now. Those are guys that aren't paying tuition, let alone what the actual roster limit size looks, including walk-ons. Those numbers are close to 120, 125, maybe close to 130. At some of these universities. So the moment a hard capped 85 comes out, Auburn's got to get rid of 50 dudes. You will know, I promise, you will know very, very quickly that something's coming down. That's not the case right now. We don't see any drastic movements being made. And the SEC commissioner came out and let you know, hey, slow down. Literally, that was his quote, slow down. The NCAA settlement has also provoked speculations about capping the size of teams' rosters as part of a new business model, a possibility that has caused consternation among some football coaches because a, quote, 85-man limit would likely eliminate the walk-on positions. But Sankey said he had told the coaches individually, quote, hey, slow down, guys. I know other conferences have discussed it. Coaches have texted other coaches. They get fired up, and we said just wait. We're going to have a conversation. That's where where it is. It's a concept right now. Understand that football captures the attention, but we have 21 championship sports, all of which need to have a level of conversation about that roster piece. It's just something that may happen. It's something that people are talking about. It's not something that you need to be asking me, hey, who's getting cut? We're not even close to those discussions. Hold off on that. All right. So the other thing that came out of this, and this is something that people have kind of been talking about recently, and I think it might as well be called the Nick Saban Kirby Smart rule, which is the idea that, like the NFL, college football programs are going to have to come out on Monday and give an injury report, a guaranteed verified injury report. And he said, quote, "We don't want to just rush into something. It's not injury reporting. It's a very different circumstance given some of the privacy issues we have. Yet when you start to see the numbers of dollars being bet on legalized sports gambling around college sports, not just football, but men's and women's basketball, volleyball, and baseball, all of those catch your attention. We have to be thoughtful about how information is managed." I understand this, and I'm with this. As someone who is a quote-unquote insider, the true injury report of Georgia, I never even really get.
Yeah.
Right.
They keep injuries even from us, off the record, because they know they have the ability to do so. So they know if the information leaks out, they're hunting heads to find out who's the one that let it out. I wouldn't be opposed to this at all. Now, on Monday at noon, I have to create some type of injury shell and hope that Kirby is coerced into relieving some type of information about his injury or about his roster. Now, we'll have to have a legitimate printed out injury report. That will allow for transparency.
Does not just being very vague on these injury reports provide that much of a competitive advantage or even a betting advantage, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I have gone about it this way. Like, Georgia very rarely lets us in for media availability at all. Mm-hmm. But for example, if my starting linebacker had a boot on for the first 15 minutes of practice and media saw that and media reported that, and then media availability ended after that 15 minutes, and that starter took that boot off his foot and went right back into practice, we don't know that.
Right.
And now guess who has to go about preparing for maybe the backup or thinking that the starter might not be there? The opponent that week. I don't put it past any of these SEC coaches to put a fake cast on somebody during media availability. I do not. We are talking about guys who make $13 million a year, $10 million a year. We're talking about guys who, if they go 9-3, they're fired. But if they go 10-2, there's hopefulness for next year. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about winning in the margins of the margins. So, yeah, being able to lead your opponent astray with regards to the healthiness of your roster is invaluable.
Well, then to me, like, all this is going to solve is 24 hours before the game, you're going to know the injury report, but everything else stays business as usual because you can still do these types of antics and do these things during practice and whatnot and lead other teams astray. As long as you are honest and upfront with your injury report 24 hours beforehand, then you're good.
I would imagine these things have to come out in advance so lines can be set accordingly.
Yeah.
But all the stuff that every Friday, every Monday, every Tuesday during the year, we're, as content creators and writers, constantly having to look up betting lines. Yeah. Constantly. And you know who oftentimes has better injury reports than even I do? Some of these damn betting sites. My God. Because why wouldn't they? Vegas has got hundreds of millions of dollars on the line every Saturday. They better be getting up-to-date information on injury reports. So I understand this. I also don't know if college football coaches are just going to be giving up this information willy-nilly. I think they're going to be fighting this one more so than anything else. College football coaches, more than any coach that I know, even pro coaches, they are very much so information controllers. They want to control and own the information, which is why everybody looks at programs like Florida and goes, do you really need 375 people on your staff? Probably not. Looks like a whole bunch of information leaking out of that program. And that's how that happens. Controlling the information is invaluable. Any other thoughts about this Sankey stuff coming out from the media? Mm-hmm. All right. More bowl games? Sorry.
That's the rumor.
More bowl games coming? Talk to me about this while I relieve myself right quick.
talk to you
why I said it that way.
Why you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, talk to me about this, why I use the restroom.
So obviously we've had a major expansion in the world of college football over the last few years, and with that expansion has come the minimization of importance of bowl games. So you would expect that, with the bowl games becoming less and less meaningful, quote unquote, with all the, and you've seen statistics, 78 players opted out, over 300 entered the transfer portal before the bowl game was even played last year. So things such as that would lead you to assume that, hey, we might be getting less and less bowl games just because they don't matter as much. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, actually. So bowl season director Nick Carparelli.
You got it.
Carparelli stated that 12 postseason opportunities is not enough for college football. There's so many great stories every year about growing programs emerging that have an opportunity to play in a bowl game and celebrate a great victory. It serves as a launching point and a building platform for their program moving forward. College football needs bowl games, and bowl games are going to be the solution for college football's postseason, just like they have for over the last 100 years. So what it sounds like to me is that with the expansion of college football playoff and the sport of college football growing as general, people are instead saying that despite the fact that we all agree bowl games have become more and more meaningless as years have gone on, they're just pressing forward and saying, you know what? We're just going to get as much money out as we can.
I was about to say, that statement reads to me like college football bowl games are an incredible source of income for a lot of different people, both TV revenue, marketing ads, all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you've got
tremendous opportunity to make money.
You've got the Snoop Dogg Gin and Juice Bowl coming in this year. For 3 years straight, you haven't had enough teams that qualified for bowl games, so you've had to select 5 and 7 matchups.
Bro, the day I'm rich enough to buy a bowl game between two 6-6 mid-major football programs, you ain't gonna be able to tell me shit, bro.
What would you name it?
I don't know. I have literally no idea. I'm Rich Bitch Bowl. That's what I would name it.
I wonder if that's trademarked.
I'm Rich Bitch?
I wonder if Dave Chappelle's got
Rick James got that for sure, right? Didn't Rick James say that first?
Well, no. I don't know.
Chappelle said it as Rick James?
I'm Rick James, bitch, is the quote from Dave Chappelle. Yeah. I'm Rich Bitch is from the reparations skit.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I know so much about Chappelle's show.
Well, I would have to have Prize Picks bankroll it for sure.
For sure.
Because we're broke. So
yeah,
we're just content creators living in our mom's basement.
Dandy lifestyle.
But no, this is good. This means even more bowl games?
Essentially, they're looking to expand the bowl season to make it, because right now there's 42 bowl games. You have 12 teams playing in a college football playoff, and now there's the idea that we need more bowl games to tell the story of all these great college football teams, which essentially is just sugarcoating the way of saying we're trying to make more money. We want sponsorships for these bowl games. We want people to come in and pay us large amounts of money so we can have 6-6 New Mexico State play Wyoming on a Saturday in late December.
All right, look, I'm not a gambler, and I have 2 children and a wife, and generally just a life to live. So I don't think I watched a single meaningless bowl game this year.
I watched a whole week. I did like one Saturday night.
So you watched like 3 bowl games?
Yeah.
How many did you watch?
I probably watched 15.
Okay, so you ain't had shit else to do.
But it's like,
how many bowl games did you watch, person who's off camera? 5? All right. So there's a collective 25 bowl games having been watched in this, with assuming no overlap. So between the 4 of us, we didn't watch every bowl game available, and you're telling me they're going to give more. My general thought process here is that ever since, was it Jalen Smith? Who was the Notre Dame linebacker that blew his shit out in Fiesta Bowl? It was Jalen Smith?
Yeah.
That guy right there. Since that moment and players started opting out of these things, they have meant less and less and less to everyone who is not somebody with a crippling gambling addiction. So
I agree.
We're expanding these. We're making more of them, even though I would presume the ratings on these have not plummeted, but they've gone down dramatically, I would imagine.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that it has to do with the time of year. Like, the only reason why I was watching those bowl games that night is because I was at a bar with my dad, and we were catching up and stuff like that, and they just happened to be on. Yeah, you just go out, hang out with someone, and you're at a bar, bowl game's on, and then you're just like naturally having a discussion about, oh wow, I didn't know that person ended up at New Mexico State. They were at Auburn 3 years ago, like those types of things. But I don't really sit down at my house and I'm like, I cannot wait to watch this bowl game tonight.
Bro was watching TJ Finley going.
I was, literally was.
Yeah.
Now what
Utah State.
Now what
Utah
Carparelli is proposing in this article is that the revenue split thing is going to become enticing. It's become legally binding for these players to have to play in these games because of obviously they're going to be employment. They're going to have to sign some sort of contract throughout a year.
They won't be employed. They will have signed their rights away for a calendar year in order to exchange the payment.
Correct. So the idea is that once we get into a world of revenue split, these players are going to more likely have to play if they want to make the money.
Well, can't you just pull who was old buddy in the NBA that was betting on games? Johnson, whatever.
It wasn't even
Porter Smith, whatever. Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. You can just pull one of those if you're one of these. You want to quote unquote opt out nowadays of a bowl game. Just go out, pull your hamstring during warm-ups. There you go. I just opted out. You can't tell me I'm not hurt.
I mean, yeah, there's roundabout ways to get around it, I'm sure, but that's kind of the utopias idea is that, hey, they're going to have to play in these games because it's going to be legally binding in some way. That's why we're going to make more, because college football has a story to tell.
This is ESPN needs more content. Fox needs more content.
Honestly, though, I'm not going to complain.
I'm not either.
Like, anytime you get more football...
I just don't know. There's not enough teams. We're going to have 5 and 7.
No, yeah, you're going to have 5 and 7. You've had 5 and 7 teams for the last 3 years. There haven't been enough 6 and 6 teams to make a bowl game.
They're just going to keep on adding more teams, I guess, to the field.
Wait to watch UTEP play Texas State. They probably play.
If it's a good game, man, sign me up.
It just has to be a close game to be a good game for you.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I wish I still loved football like that.
There's no better feeling than coming home like December 18th at like 5:38 p.m. Just be like, there's nothing to do. Let me turn on the TV. Oh shit, there's a football game on.
But it can't be a close game of 10-7 in the fourth quarter.
If it's close, it's close, man.
Nobody wants to watch.
You just gotta appreciate good defenses.
Bro gets the award for watching trash football.
Hey, I love football, man.
Now, it's not just bowl expansion. We've had conference expansion over the last several years of college football, and realignment more in particular than conference expansion. We've seen the Pac-12 dissolve. We've seen the Big Ten go up to 20 teams now. We've seen the SEC vault itself up to 16 teams. The ACC added some West Coast teams for some random ass reason, and SMU free. So there's a bunch of realignment in college football, and it's created some new opportunities for new matchups. So boys, what are you most looking forward to in terms of a brand new, never before seen, wouldn't have had it otherwise, realignment, new matchup shit?
Why are you laughing?
Just the way I finished.
You really sold that, like, shit. I don't know. Just say something. I don't know.
That one.
I wouldn't deem this as like never would have happened otherwise, but this is one that is happening this year and it'll happen next year and it'll continue to happen. I think the Oklahoma-Tennessee matchup right now is really interesting because Josh Heupel being from Oklahoma,
having won a natty,
there's a connection there. They're going to be playing at Norman this year. It's Josh Heupel's first return to Norman since leaving Oklahoma. I think as long as those two things remain the same, like Josh Heupel remains at Tennessee, I think that matchup will continue to be like one of the bigger matchups and a fun one.
Last time those two teams played was a double overtime game in Knoxville, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the right. Baker Mayfield, I think.
And the interesting thing about these two teams is I would put them on par with each other recruiting wise.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not saying they battle for the same players, but in terms of, hey, which one of y'all is going to recruit the third best this year in the SEC behind Georgia and insert LSU, Texas, or Bama? Is it going to be you? I think these two teams kind of battle out for that like 1B supremacy of like should be perennially good football programs. So I'm with you on that one. I'm interested in seeing Utah versus the Big 12 as a whole because I proposed this question to you guys pre-show. If we all assume Kyle Whittingham to be the best coach in the Big 12, who's the second best coach in the Big 12? And how big is that gap between what we think of Kyle Whittingham versus what we think of insert second best coach?
It's Gundy,
to me, it's a large gap.
I mean, consistency, it's been Gundy. I mean, for 10 years, he's been the poster child of 8-4, 9-3, but I would personally argue Lance Leipold with what he did to that Kansas roster that was just decimated and has made it a consistent top 25 team might be a playoff team now with the way that Big 12 looks.
The idea that Kansas is, and I didn't call you absolutely R-worded for even saying that, is Kansas being a perennial top 25 team? What? Kansas football, top 25 every year? What? That's crazy to me.
Right.
Lance Leipold, good football coach.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree that he has an argument for second best outside of maybe Gundy, Campbell maybe, our boy from Kansas State. Chris Kleiman. That's how my boy from Kansas State he is to me, because you even told me Chris Kleiman's name before the show started 35 minutes ago.
I just had to really think about it to make sure I remember the name.
And I forgot it. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what Utah does, not just this year, but perennially. Now, it's the last year of Cam Rising's 35-year career at Utah. But Whittingham wins every year. Like, he was winning and competing for Pac-12 championships with a much, much worse roster than other Pac-12 member schools. And now I would argue he has one of the better rosters in his conference. So super excited to see what Utah does versus the Big 12.
Yeah. Team or a matchup I'm really excited to see in the future is going to be Oregon, Ohio State. I mean, that's two big national brands that are on the other side of the country, or were on the other side of the country conference-wise, things such as that. Never really played a ton, but now that they're in the same conference, you're going to get those matchups a lot. So that's an exciting thing for me.
I think that
I want to stay here on this Oregon idea and this Oregon possibilities, because Oregon versus Ohio State is going to be great. We saw it a couple of years ago when they did a home and home. Ohio State didn't travel back to Oregon because they canceled it because they were coming to the Big Ten, but we did get Oregon at Ohio State.
Yeah, that was when Oregon upset them. That was 2021.
Yes.
With the transfer quarterback that started for 1 year there, just randomly beat Ohio State and then didn't look anything like he did against Ohio State the remainder of the year. Shouts out Mario Cristobal. But I'm super intrigued in all these matchups, right? Oregon, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. Give me these. They're going to be great. But I'm more intrigued at what the addition of Oregon to this conference does to the pressure on James Franklin's job. James Franklin keeps his job every year, despite the fact that people want him to be on the hot seat every year, because he finishes third in a conference in which he should finish third. He's the third best team. Ohio State's better than you. They care about football more. They invest in football more. They should be better than you. They beat you. That's fine. You sneak up on them every once in a while. Great job, James Franklin. Michigan, you should probably beat them every other year. Probably feels like the expectations there. It hasn't led to that, and he hasn't met those expectations, but that's kind of the feel. Finishing third when you are third isn't reason for you being on the hot seat. However, Oregon comes into this conference, and now your presumed third spot isn't there. You can't just walk in and finish in the bronze medalist position. I think Oregon coming to this conference puts more pressure on James Franklin's job.
Well, it does, but I think something that kind of relieved that pressure is the fact that Jim Harbaugh left Michigan. The presumed it was 1A and 1B between Michigan and Ohio State.
And left them in shambles.
Yeah, left that program in shambles. So, I mean, yeah, you added a team that's probably ahead of Penn State, but the team that was ahead of Penn State probably just got a lot worse. Now, I mean, you could maybe make the argument, hey, USC and Lincoln Riley, if they start putting things together, that could be a real problem for Penn State. And I think that's where the pressure is going to come in, because you have two teams now that could take that spot. But I'm not necessarily worried about Michigan this year. I think that, if James Franklin loses to Michigan this year, you have a big problem. Yeah. That's the way I see it.
I think it's something that you won't be able to just analyze from the 2024 season, because Ohio State has put every single piece and allocated every single resource possible to winning it all this season. Oregon continues to recruit the transfer portal really hard. So, like, this year, probably the odds are stacked against you, it seems like, or at least it feels that way. But, like, next year, how does Ohio State look after this next season once I have quite a few departures? Like, Oregon, do they continue to keep building with Dan Lanning? Michigan, do they continue to take a step back, or are they taking steps forward under Sharon Moore? Those types of things. So, like, over the next few years, that'll be something interesting to analyze. But also, I don't know if you have a few years to wait yourself, James Franklin, to find that out.
Now, Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC is great from a name stakes perspective, but it also brings back Texas versus Texas A&M, and I don't think as of right now that's an annual basis. I don't think that is it.
I think it might be.
I don't think it is, because Elko talked about it today and said that he is hopeful that it will be. So meaning that it is currently not. Elko apparently wants the annual smoke. I would imagine Sarkisian does as well. But Texas fans, I don't think care. I think Texas A&M fans want a shot at Big Brother every year.
Sure.
There is not I don't think there is a rivalry in the sport of college football where one looks down upon the other and the other one hates the one that looks down upon them so much because of it, more so than this rivalry. Can you think of another one? Because like USC, UCLA there's not enough vitriol there. There's a pretentious battle. That is not this.
Maybe Auburn, Alabama.
Auburn's got national titles in the last 20
What
years.
about Clemson, South Carolina?
But Clemson, as of late, for sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the whole series total, I think Clemson's got 30 more wins in that one than South Carolina. So they've drummed them up.
I mean, the problem with this is that there hasn't been a game play between these two teams in 13 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're kind of going off the assumption that, hey, Texas is still big brother to Texas A&M little brother, when in reality Texas A&M would probably beat the shit out of Texas from 2012 to like 2016. Texas was really figuring things out back then. And you had Johnny Manziel. So I mean, it's hard to go off this assumption that Texas still is that dominant force just because, I mean, the programs have drastically changed in the last 15 years.
I also don't know if there's enough and there's a lot of pettiness between these two programs. A&M was actually one of the main reasons that Texas didn't leave for the Pac-12 10, 15 years ago. And Texas and Oklahoma ending up in the Pac-12 right now, or being in the Pac-12 right now, probably doesn't mean the Pac-12 dissolves like it did.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a very well-known kind of like push from Texas A&M brass when Texas was mentioned as a potential joiner of the SEC. Texas A&M was the only one in the conference, from my understanding, that was like, hell no, not happening.
Yeah.
And they got told to shut up. It's happening. So like, there's a lot of pettiness between these two programs. So the joining of Texas and Oklahoma brings that back, and I'm glad to have that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that matchup.
I think Georgia and Texas is happening at the perfect time. I think, and especially because you're going to get them over the next 2 years. Like the fact that it is two guys from Alabama, two guys that were under Nick Saban, and then on top of that, two guys that are now going to be going head to head for national titles. Like this year, they are 1-2 in the odds to win the national title this year, competing for the SEC. Like it was a perfect time for Nick Saban to step away and retire because now Georgia has Texas, and again, you get them both times of the regular season this year. I think that matchup is happening at the absolute perfect time for both programs.
A game I'm interested to see when it finally happens. I don't know if they play this year or not, but just not as much excited, but kind of interested to see when Michigan and Washington play each other again, because those two teams have gone in complete directions opposite of where they were last year, to a point of like they're not even recognizable teams. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how much you can play up that rematch as like, oh, a rematch from the national title game.
I don't know if you have it in front of you. Is that game early or late in the season?
That's early.
Let me check.
Take that back.
Michigan, Texas play early in the year.
Yeah.
Michigan, Texas play like week 2.
We get Michigan, Texas this year. We get Georgia, Texas. Texas got a slate. They
don't even
slate on them.
So they play on October 5th.
Okay. All right. So there's I'm not going to say strong possibility, but there is a possibility that we have a rematch of the national title 8 months after it's played, 10 months after it's played, and neither of those two teams are ranked.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. October?
Dude,
that's plenty of time.
Michigan's 2 losses from falling out.
Yeah, but they play.
They're an ass whooping from Texas.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, but they play Fresno State, Texas, Arkansas State, USC, Minnesota before they go to Washington. Like, it's not a really difficult schedule.
Lose to Texas by 3 scores and have a 1-score game against USC. You're 24th.
Let Miller Moss cut you up.
But that's the only point that I'm trying to make is like, we're going to go from these two teams, and you laid it out. They've gone complete opposite directions of where they were, but we're going to go from, hey, we have a rematch in the national title. Neither of these teams are ranked. That's a possibility that it could happen come mid-October.
Yeah.
Y'all have any more? Because I have one last thing that I'm super grateful for and excited for.
I do not.
From Realignment. Are you good?
I think Georgia-Oklahoma is going to be an interesting series just because the Rose Bowl, obviously, and they were supposed to play last year, so it's been kind of a long time coming when they finally do play. But
I think the best and most noteworthy thing that has come out of Realignment is that Realignment forced the removal of divisions within conferences. And the removal of divisions within conferences is what is really going to open up the doors for really, really great perennial matchups. Because I don't know about you guys, I got really sick and tired of watching Iowa be told that we're told all the time Iowa's good. No, they're not. The Big Ten West sucks. I got really, really tired of looking at the SEC East and going, God dang, Kirby has completely demolished the rest of the opponents. And I felt that way about the SEC West about midway through Nick Saban's regime out there at Alabama. But for some reason, there was always a monster on the other side of the conference that we didn't get to see each other face off with one another until December 2nd. That's stupid. We're not going to have that anymore because of the realignment forcing divisions out of these conferences. And I think that's the best thing that's come out of this.
Yeah, the same way that it'll feel like you get a rightfully earned national champion every single year, you'll have the same about conference champions as well, and a rightfully matched up to opponents in the conference championship games.
And just general fairness. And I know God forbid, everything's fair. Give God participation trophy award, whatever you want to say about it. But the competitive balance has become much better because of this. And you're not going to have years where you look up and go, golly, Georgia's favored by 15 points in every game that they play. Well, no, because now they got Texas, Ole Miss, and Bama on the schedule. That's only happened because of this. All right. The reason we're all here today, to put some people on must make it to the college football playoff watch. That was a real wordy title there.
Yeah, teams that need to make the playoff.
Teams that need to make the college football playoff. We're going to call you out right here. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to go around the room and present a candidate for you must make the college football playoff, starting with Ole Miss. Ole Miss must make the college football playoff because of how much money they have put into this roster, on top of the fact that the window will ultimately close with Jackson Dart being done this year. That is my opinion. Ole Miss has to make a college football playoff this year.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like the ultimate do or die situation, but even more so than Ohio State's right now, because Ohio State, you still feel pretty confident that Ohio State the next season is going to be in the similar position of you're going to be competing for a national title. Ole Miss, it's 2024 is your year. 2025, we have no idea what you're going to look like. You might have five losses on the schedule that next year.
And your boys already said that in 2025, Lane Kiffin's going to be the head coach at Florida. So I've already beaten everybody to that scoop, and it's going to happen. So, 2025, Florida's the team that Lane Kiffin's got to take to a natty and to a college football playoff, not Ole Miss. So there's that. The window, very tight, and just the general investment into the roster. I can't be spending that much money and you not make a college football playoff. You not be a top 11 team when would you say Ole Miss has they have a top 5 spending roster, right? Their payroll is top 5.
If they're not top 5, they're
if not
easily
top 3.
10. Yeah.
So we all believe that. We all know that to be true, or at least believe that to be true. They have to make a college football playoff. We all agree on that one. Who else has a submission?
You want to go, Jay Will?
I think Penn State.
I like that one.
I think Penn State. I think that you have to.
Why?
Because that's kind of like you've already had these kind of similar expectations for Penn State leading into every single year. And for me personally, this feels like the first year where Penn State has a gap in the Big 12 or the Big 10, for you to make that happen. And again, like I said it last night, I could very easily see Penn State being 10-2 or 11-1 by the end of this season. And I just think it'd be a huge momentum boost for James Franklin. But again, with Michigan being where it's at now, Ohio State, obviously that's ahead of you. That's fine. Oregon can even be ahead of you. That's fine. But you've been finishing in the top 3 of the Big Ten for a while now. You should do it again this year, and I think you have to do it this year.
Not to mention the margins for error have been widened by 8 spots. Like, you don't have to be a top 4 team anymore. You have to be in the top 12. If you don't finish in the top 12 as Penn State, like, James Franklin is in a lot of trouble. I'm
looking at it now. The only, all right, mark it up. That's a loss. Ohio State, and they get them at home.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's going to be a whiteout. So it doesn't. It looks like a favorable schedule. It looks like a winnable schedule. West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland.
There's even a world where Penn State...
No Michigan, no Oregon. The toughest Big Ten matchups are Ohio State, USC, and Washington.
They should go 10-2 with that schedule.
Bar minimum. Minimum.
I mean, they could go 11-1.
They should go 11-1, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think with that schedule, and again, with just the overall circumstance of the Big Ten this year, I think it is a must-make the playoff year for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions.
Oof, I agree with that one as well. He's fired at the end of the year then. Because I don't see it happening. Because that means, they might be the second best team in the Big Ten this year. I find that hard to believe, though.
Maybe. But I also think that, this is a thing that happens when you don't have divisions anymore. there is a world where Penn State goes 11-1, loses to Ohio State, and you don't play in the conference championship.
And there's also a world that Oregon's in that conference championship. They lose, making it their second loss. You only have 2, and you didn't lose recently, so you get the 11th spot. And Oregon's sitting at home because they played in the conference.
Or you skip out the conference champion. You only have 1 loss, and it's to Ohio State, who's in the playoff, who's a top 4 seed,
and you're getting in anyways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. There's a strong possibility that they could be on this. Hey, you got to win. You got to win out and make a college football playoff. I'll allow it. Who do you got?
I've got the Clemson Tigers as a team that need to make the playoff.
LT Grace?
LT Grace.
Why?
Just because for 5 years now, Clemson has kind of been looked at as one of these prestige teams, and they have not lived up to the hype for 4 of those years, to a point where now, again, the margins are moved so much in your favor that all you have to do is essentially go 10-2, or even at worst 9-3, and you're a playoff team. And by the way, Clemson hasn't made the playoff since 2020.
When they made 6 in a row, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and the fact is, like, Dabo Swinney's consistently been slipping down the ranks of coaching, and the fact that he's not ever going to go for a transfer portal guy is only going to make it look much worse if you don't make a playoff this year. Now, you can rectify all that if you do make a playoff and make a playoff game and can say, look, the system we have works. We made the playoff this year. We beat Florida State or whatever. We made the conference title game again. So I think that Clemson is a team that really needs to make the playoff this year.
I think they need to improve on 9-4. I don't think they have to make a playoff this year.
I think it's a need to make the playoff. Because, like, I would
have to.
The way I would propose it, like, do you expect them to make the playoff?
I don't.
Do you expect them to make the playoff?
No.
I think they need
I don't think they have to make the playoff this year.
If the expectations are that they probably won't, then the expectations can't be that they have to.
That's kind of how I feel.
Josh,
I agree that they need to. Like,
Yeah.
Dabo Swinney needs to be back in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, the title of this segment is teams that need to make the playoff this year.
I thought it was must.
It's must.
No, it says need to on my
In the show notes.
You got overruled on the
I didn't
title.
know that.
Well, order in the court, we're not allowing Clemson. Okay. Clemson is a needs to, not has to. However, Georgia and Texas and Ohio State are have tos, and I think that's the standard, and we'll just put them in this perennial have to. You'll have to make it.
I mean, do they have to, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your fan base is pissed. That's the have to.
Yeah, but what's the consequence? Your fan base is mad, and you come back.
The consequences for most of these are your head coach is potentially fired. That's not the case at either of these schools, except for maybe Ohio State. Some Ohio State fans might think that. They're crazy.
Ryan Day's the most likely out of those 3.
Yes. But those 3 teams entering the year, they have to make a college football playoff.
Dude, if neither one of those teams are in the top 12 at the end of the year,
insanity.
There's some bad things going on.
These are standard have tos.
Yeah.
Like, your standard is a college football playoff. If you didn't make it, your season was a failure.
Okay.
For those 3 programs. Who else you got?
I put Utah in here.
I got Utah in here as well.
Because, I mean, people did it when they were in the Pac-12 they think that they were going to be a playoff team. There's multiple years, especially recently, where they were projected to be potentially a top 4 team. But now there's just no excuse for Whittingham and the Utes. There's no excuse anymore of, like, things that could go like, oh, it's because we pay in the Pac-12 and our schedule, or like our strength of schedule isn't as strong as the SEC, or like there's other conference bias and we just get written off. Like, you're in the Big 12, you get an automatic bid if you win the conference. People expect you to win the conference, even if you do just win 9 games. You should win that conference. You should be in the playoff this year.
I mean, now that we've changed the metrics on this segment, I'll still say I think Tennessee is a team that needs to make the playoff this year, because you had that great year in 2021. You came out in 2023, or 2022 was your great year. 2023 was basically like, hey, this is the year we win it all. Joe Milton's our guy, and you had a very disappointing season. Now it's at a point where, once again, the margins have been moved for you. Now you've got Nico. He's a really good quarterback. He's going to be in his first year starting, so there's going to be some growing pains, you'd have to assume. But if he's as good as was advertised and as good as he showed he was in that Iowa game, like, this has to be a year where you put things together and you can at least sneak it. Don't have to win the SEC. Don't even have to go to the SEC championship, but you at least have to be one of the 12 best teams at the end of the year.
I'm under the impression that because it's year 1 and you know you're going to get a year 2 under Nico, that it is a needs to, doesn't have to.
Correct.
You got a leeway here, but you can't go 8-5. That can't be it.
Correct.
Right? But you don't have to go 11-1 and be a top 8 seed. But you damn sure can't be 9-4 or 8-5.
Yeah, worst case for Tennessee this year is you go 9-3 and your 3 losses are Georgia, Alabama, and Oklahoma.
And you know what? You're never getting pissed off at that guy for that.
No.
That Oklahoma road loss, losing to Georgia, and who's the other in Texas? Alabama. Like, you can't get pissed off at that guy for doing that year 3 in your program after, he's still, by the way, he's still under scholarship limits. Mm-hmm. He's still serving Jeremy Pruitt's
That's right. Time. I forgot about that.
So I think that right there needs to be some leeway. And by the way, like, when has Tennessee football had this kind of momentum?
It's been a while.
A long time.
Fat Phil?
Yeah.
It's been that long. You can do the Kiffin thing, but he was in and out burning couches.
I was thinking that Bush Jones.
Oh, you Bush Jones and me? Even Tennessee fans knew that was Fugazi.
I don't know, dude. They had so much hype. Like, the Butch Jones era of like 2014, 2015. I might be misremembering that, but I remember Tennessee fans were very confident in their abilities that year.
Bro was a big Josh Dobbs fan.
I was not a Josh Dobbs fan, dude.
I'm gonna nix Tennessee here. I don't believe they have to.
That's fine.
Nor like Smooth's talking about in the chat. Now, he's an Alabama fan, notoriously, our one and only around here that's always in the chat. Thank you, Smooth. Respect. He is under the impression that Alabama has to make a college football playoff. And no. I don't believe that to be true. And, right, Kalen DeBoer's first year, you've got leeway here. You've got some time replacing a legend. There's really, really good SEC teams right now that are primed for a national title run, at least 3 that we know that are in your ballpark, you being one of the 4 that we think is a potential playoff contender, being Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, and Alabama out of this conference. We can talk about Tennessee and other ones, but they're outside of this 4. I wouldn't do this to him, but you can, and here's why. If I'm an Alabama fan, I'd be really, really nervous that if he can't win with the roster that he has now, what makes me think that he's going to win with his own roster? We know what Kalen DeBoer does on the recruiting trail, at least at other stops, and it wasn't recruit like Nick Saban. Okay, so I could argue that Kalen DeBoer, from a pure talent basis, has the best roster right now that he might ever have at Alabama, and for that reason, it might be a must-win.
The pushback on that would be obviously that the talent that he has in the room isn't catered to what he wants to do. Like Jalen Milroe,
we could spin it both ways.
Yeah, like Jalen Milroe, as talented as he is, isn't probably going to fit into the system that Kalen DeBoer has traditionally ran. So, I mean, I think just to come out and say, hey, in your first year, you have to be one of the 12 best teams and make a playoff is astronomically insane to say.
Yeah. I don't think
that's not disrespect to the Alabama program. No. I don't care if you have the best program in the world. I don't care if you inherited the number 1 roster in college football. If it's your first year coaching, the baseline expectation should not be, hey, you have to make a playoff.
I also wouldn't even say that like they're Smooth is saying in the chat. I wouldn't even say that he got a Ferrari with his roster. I think you got a Ford F-150 and put a lift kit on it. Like, you just made a really cool vehicle a little cooler. I wouldn't say that Alabama has like tier 1 roster in all of college football right now, especially with the teams that you just listed, like even outside of the SEC. I would say that you have one of the better rosters, but let's not say like that roster is just full of world beaters. That guy that program got exposed to the transfer portal because Nick Saban left.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to put them over here in they don't get included in this have to. All right. Missouri.
Yeah, I have them on my list.
They're in the same boat, not as extreme with Ole Miss, but like it feels like,
if not now, when?
Exactly.
Like, if you don't make a college football playoff, when you return your entire offense and possibly the best wide receiver in the sport, if you don't make a college football playoff, you're not a top 11 program then. Like, when are you going to be one?
I agree.
Is the question. Now, granted, he's done some high-end recruiting in spurts, but we know the SEC lifeblood is built off of player acquisition and making your roster as good and as talented as possible. And they have a top 3 or 4 SEC roster right now, or will play like that this fall. The same cannot be said for the future of their program. I don't think we can say that about next year or the year after that. So this is a must make a playoff. I'm not saying you got to win a title, but you got to be playing in January this year if you're Missouri.
I agree with that one.
I mean, got to cash in on that last year of Luther Burden, Brady Cook. Like, you got to returned a big chunk of your production from last year. A lot of momentum in your favor. Can't say the same for next year.
Do we have any other ones?
I've got one more. Okay. I think Florida State needs to make the playoff this year just to avoid the comeback to earth moment. Because as we all know how that season ended last year for them, if you don't follow it up with, at the very least, being in the conversation come late December, early January of, hey, this is a national title contending team, everything that happened in 2023 kind of goes out the window, in my opinion. Like, Mike Norvell goes back to, like, hey, can he build Florida State back up to maybe competing for national titles? Was 2023 a fluke? Was it a Jordan Travis year? Yada, yada, yada. You have to avoid that and at least make the playoff this year. Obviously, it's not a you miss it and you're astronomically in trouble, or Mike Norvell's on the hot seat or anything like that. But you have to avoid that discussion of, hey, 2023 was kind of a fluke because look what you did the following year.
Florida State's got a 1-month season. You ready? Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame, back to back to back to back to back.
Wow.
It's got to be the toughest schedule in the ACC, right?
It's the toughest stretch for sure.
Yeah. What's after that?
They play Charleston Southern and then Florida.
Okay.
At home against Florida. So that right there will determine whether or not Mike Norvell's a guy. I don't love the roster. I'm gonna be honest with you.
No, I don't think it's anything compared to what they had last year.
I don't even think it's fair to say that they have to be a top 11 team. I'm marking them out of must win. I'm with you. I understand the point of the discussion. It's like, hey man, y'all had a great season last year. Let's make sure it's not a Cinderella season. Let's make sure you're not Gus Malzahn's, Gene Chiswick's Auburn Tigers. Let's make sure you weren't a flash in the pan. Let's make sure you're a real football coach. I think his ability to have turned that program around at the rate and the speed at which he did proves to me he is a really good football coach.
Correct.
But they are far closer to an 8-5 roster than they are a 13-0 roster, and I don't think that's debatable.
No, I wouldn't debate that at all.
So I wouldn't make them a have to. So here's what we settled on, right? We settled on Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State as standards. That's the new standard for your football program for the time being. Ole Miss, Mizzou, Utah, and Penn State. Those are the ones we have right now that are like, you have to finish top 11. Mm-hmm. So that's 7 of the 11 right there that we're putting on alert.
What about Oregon?
I don't feel this way about them. I feel that he's got a leash. I feel that Oregon's got time. Guys, we're just now entering year 3 of him.
Correct.
And we got confirmation. We got stamped confirmation. He's a dude, great coach year 2. And that's great. But that doesn't mean year 3 automatic gotta go play for a playoff.
I think it means you can't show regression from what you had last year. And I mean, if you give the exact baseline performance that you gave last year, you're a top 12 team. So I think that's kind of where I'm in the you need to make the playoff this year, but obviously like it's not, hey, year 3 you better be making it. It's kind of a don't regress from what you did last year. Last year you went 11-2. Mm-hmm. 11-2, lost to the same team twice. Like other than like if you do that again this year, you're a playoff team. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Oh, buddy. Oh shit. Oh Lord. They got Washington, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State don't count, but they got Ohio State and Michigan and Washington out of the Big Ten schedule.
I mean,
they got the worst Big Ten schedule.
That's definitely a difficult Big Ten schedule. I would argue that they should handle Washington and Michigan though.
The only really good team they avoided was USC, and USC's down. They got the top 3 opponents in the Big Ten on their schedule. That's a tough route. Mm-hmm. So if they go 10-2 and miss a playoff, I'm not mad at Dan Lanning.
No.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep him out. So we got 7.
That's fine.
It's not bad. I think that's a good little slate. All right. You have some intel on how TV scheduling goes. Will you give this to me real quick?
Yeah. So basically TV scheduling is the headline of it is the world's most expensive fantasy football draft. So essentially these networks, NBC, CBS, all that have a draft where it goes in like fantasy order where you get slot 1, you pick this game, you get slot 2, you pick this game. The interesting thing that I found about it was someone quoted Mulville. Dude, what's up with these names today? Mulvihill is this guy's name. He talks about
Molehill.
Yeah, I don't want to butcher the man's name, but
I think you already did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. But he quotes, "We don't really earn our salaries by picking Michigan, Ohio State number 1. Any college football fan would see that's the obvious first selection. We start thinking about these next couple choices, it gets interesting. We have felt that this year Texas Michigan was probably a top 3 game just on its own merit. So they have to go in and basically how these are decided is we know the obvious ones, your Texas or whatever's the big games, the game, things such as that are your number 1 spots. spots. But going through and picking those 2 or 3 is where you make a lot of money as a network, because you have to kind of project like, hey, Michigan, Texas is going to be a really big game in week 2. You've got the defending national champion between Texas, or 2 teams that never really play. Texas has playoff aspirations, so things such as that. So it's kind of interesting just to see how they select these games, because I always thought it was kind of like some team gets first priority of like, hey, we want the best game this week. Like CBS always got the best SEC game, just because I thought that was like they had their right to that. But
it almost sounds like some of these TV networks apply the tight end fantasy draft strategy that I have. I believe the tight end position is the hardest in fantasy sports to not only draft but have a consistent, like, good player in it. So if you had a guy like Rob Gronkowski for like a decade, where he was so far and away better than the second best tight end, he was invaluable. Right now, Travis Kelce is this. Travis Kelce is invaluable because I know he's going to be really, really good every week. And there's not really a number 2. And if you're so much better than your number 2, then I have to draft you out of order, basically. Yeah. And that's kind of what you just described, kind of.
Well, yeah, in a way, like using your fantasy method, like, obviously Travis Kelce is going to be the number 1 pick, but the real value and where you really win is finding the solid number 2. So that's kind of what these.
It's like betting on like, oh, Texas A&M Arkansas ended up being a fantastic game. Like a few years ago, that was the case where it was like a shootout. It's like that game had high ratings where it probably wasn't the biggest game on the slate that week, but someone picked it up and you ended up making a huge profit off of it.
Correct.
All right, we got a whole nother hour coming up right now. We'll see in about 45 seconds.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog?
What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grab some tape.
Probably don't
Just
want to
keep putting it in the gullet, though.
Yeah, probably don't want to be drinking that shit.
Just keep drinking the shit, even though it's probably not good for me. Hey, welcome into our local hour. We got a whole nother hour for you, and it is jam-packed. It is loaded, as always. Got a little bit of a told you so coming to start this local hour. Kirby with a little bit of cap. Maybe.
Coach Smart.
Possibly.
Not me.
Yeah, not you. Coach Smart with a little bit of cappage, if you will. One key area of improvement needed for UGA's offense. Georgia has a winning streak that is on the line, and we'll bring you a sneaky opponent that might be able to beat that winning streak, or rather end that winning streak. We have a hypothetical scenario. Love hypotheticals around here. We're going to bring you a good one towards the end of the night show. And we're going to get to a player of the day who we were supposed to get to yesterday, but we ran out. We just had way too much. It was way too loaded of a show to even get to Zyaire Addison yesterday, but we're going to get to it today. Talked a little bit about it in the national hour. It is our local hour, so we'll readdress it here. Kirby Smart was asked about the Jaden Rashada lawsuit today during the SEC meetings down there, spring meetings down there in Destin. He said, quote, "It's a sign of times, potentially. That's outside of my bubble, and I only worry about what's in my bubble." Bro basically said, I keep the main thing the main thing. Keep it pushing, bro. Quit asking me about shit I can't talk about. And this is my opportunity to say, I told you so. I came on this network last week, and I told you when this news story came out and this lawsuit was filed by Jaden Rashada against Billy Napier and against Florida's biggest booster and against a fired member of their staff, I told you, this ain't going to be a distraction. This is a third string, best case scenario, second string quarterback that is filing a personal lawsuit against a coach of another, it happens to be a rival, but another program. You're not named in the lawsuit. You're not involved in the lawsuit. This individual will never, ever, ever be in front of the media until this lawsuit is probably well past solved and finalized. So this isn't going to be a talking point. They will not allow it to be, particularly Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is the definition of a keep the main thing type of guy, and they will not allow this to get in any type of way or be any type of distraction. And I thought that quote was an obvious main thing, quit asking, don't care. Okay? And very quick and to the point. However, The revealing part of this quote today, or the revealing part about Kirby's comments about this subject, were not about whether or not, he made any comments about it or whether or not he had any type of opinion on it. The interesting kind of detail about this is that when he was made aware of this lawsuit was revealed today. He said today that he was made aware of this lawsuit the day before it was filed. And if you guys remember, the reporting on this was, quote, that Kirby gave his, quote, blessing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now that there wasn't no blessing. I don't think there was any blessing given here. I think this was, if we believe this to be true, which I believe it to be true, that Kirby was notified of this lawsuit the day before it was given. Jaden Rashada was already on their roster. He was already committed to their university. He was already announced that he was going to transfer there. And then, oh, by the way, coach, tomorrow I'm filing this lawsuit, this really loud lawsuit. I'm filing this against Billy Napier and Hugh Hathcock and all this stuff. Blessing isn't the word I would give there. I would say he had no other choice. He had no choice in this discussion. This is a football player coming to you, a player of yours saying, Coach, I got this business I got to handle outside of the football program. I'm just letting you know. Kirby has no power, no authority in that situation to tell this kid you can't go recoup the $9.5 million that they talked you out of. There is no power here at all for Kirby to say anything other than, okay, thanks for letting me know. There's nothing he can do.
It's kind of like when one of your friends asks you, like, hey, what are you doing this week? And you say nothing. And then they ask you, like, oh, do you want to do this? You're like, I really don't want to, but now I have no excuse. Like, I have to agree to this.
No, this is like your wife telling you, hey, the trash is full. That is a statement. The trash is full. And now it is your job to go take the trash out. Hey, I'm filing a lawsuit. It is now your job to say, cool. You ain't got no power. You got nothing. You can't tell them no. Can't tell them you can't do that. You can't tell them you got to take the trash out. It's not how that works. Yeah, Get your butt off the couch and you go take the trash out.
I want to know where this term blessing gave his blessing to. Because, I mean, it's like, it seemed like the way it is phrased is, Jaden Rashada came to Kirby Smart, was like, hey, Coach Smart, can I please file this lawsuit against Billy Napier? I'd really like to for the way. And Kirby Smart goes, you go ahead and do that, son. It's fine by me. Like, I don't think that's what happened. No. I'm sure Kirby Smart came and said, you know what, that's fine. I don't really think I have a choice. He's not going to come out and say, this isn't something I wanted to have happen.
I'd go a step further. I would imagine Kirby's first thought was, why in the hell didn't you tell me about this when we had initial conversations about getting you to come to this program? That would be my first thought, as Kirby Smart would have. Right. Kirby is king information control. Okay, he wants to know it all so he can make the most accurate decision about it, right? As everyone does. And you take this young man and you get him to transfer into your program. And not only do we have to deal with, oh, by the way, let's make sure Gunnar Stockton knows that we still love him. We can't afford to have that guy hitting the portal. Let's make sure we get all of our ducks in a row. He would definitely want to know that there was a lawsuit coming against his biggest rival from one of the players on his staff. And the fact that he didn't and wasn't made aware probably perturbed him a little bit. That's why I said blessing, not the word.
No,
I would say there was. I'm not gonna say he was pissed off, but knowing him, I bet he was probably pissed off that he wasn't made aware of this when they were recruiting him.
It was given. I don't even want to say given his approval, but
again, the wording on this was he had no other choice.
Right.
He ain't got nothing for him. I can't tell you no.
Exactly.
I have no power. I have no authority in the situation. You go do what you need to do. End of story there. Your best bet as a coach in that situation is just to no comment moving forward and go on with it. Again, your third string quarterback, if he were suing Western Michigan, nobody would care. The fact that he's suing Florida makes Georgia fans think that this is some major distraction. I had people in my comments when I announced the news topic and the storyline, and people all in the comments talking about, don't even want this guy on the roster. Get rid of this guy. He's already a distraction. I'm like, I need to chill out. This ain't gonna be no problem. Yeah, dude, it gets like that because there's a portion of fans that think any noise is bad noise. Any distraction needs to be removed.
Weird.
Even if the distraction isn't a distraction.
Those will be the same guys that if in a year from now Gunnar Stockton's starting and he throws 2 picks in the game and go, where's Jaden Rashada? Why is he not starting? Like that those are the types of fans that you deal with when you have that type of thing. What are you reading?
Some chats.
Oh yeah, they're getting into it.
Dude, yeah, they're getting
a little spicy.
That playoff talk we had sent them off, man.
Love that. That's good stuff. Y'all keep firing off in that chat. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. If you have not liked this video already, what are you doing? Okay. I'm not happy. I'm giving you my blessing to like this video. One key area of improvement. I got an article for you here. Okay. I got some stats first, and then I'm going to read from an article that came out on Dogs Daily today. If you're not reading Dogs Daily on a daily basis, I don't know what you're doing. You need to.
Not supporting us.
Yeah, you're definitely not supporting us. All right, here we go. That's the wrong article. Give me 1 second. It's Christian Gokel's article today. One stat Georgia must improve on in 2024. All right, here we go. Just go read some stuff off to you. Georgia last season scored 40.1 points per game. That was 5th in the country. They averaged 7.1 yards per play. That was 4th in the country. They had 0.57 points per play last year. That was 6th in the country. They converted 55.56% of their third downs last year. That was number 1 in the country. However, listen to this. One stat above all others highlights this. In 2023, Georgia converted 89.71% of red zone opportunities per teamrankings.com. That's good for 23rd in the nation. It was a major drop-off in from 2022's 98.67%, which was first among Power 5 schools. The problem wasn't moving the football. Georgia got to the red zone more times per game, 5.2, than any other team in the country. It was the lack of finishing when they got there. Even more damning was Georgia's final 3 games. The Georgia Bulldogs scored on just 72.73% of red zone trips in those matchups. So it got worse as the season progressed, their inability to score in the red zone. When you're in the top 5, which they were pretty much in the top 5 of every offensive statistical category across the board. Is that correct, Jay Will? Mm-hmm. Top 5, just hands down, top 5 offense last year. Except for the red zone, they were a top 25 team. That's a pretty sizable drop-off from every other category that you're great at.
The only thing that I would say about this is in 2021, Georgia finished 50th in red zone conversion.
I was going to say, yeah, they had pretty historic defense that year too.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So, like, I'm not saying that like you can. It's a recipe for winning. Like, not converting in the red zone can like be withheld. I'm saying like in 2021, you went for, like Todd Monken corrected that number, and a large part of that probably was because Stetson Bennett had played a full season at that point going into 2022, and they had a lot of key returning pieces. I think you can say the same thing for this year's offense. Of Carson Beck just went through an entire season of starting. Now he's going into another year of starting. Like, you might see a similar jump from those numbers that you did from 2021 to 2022.
I'm gonna do this. I don't do this often. I sidetrack quite often. Seeing comments about Georgia's speeding issues. Okay, all this stuff. Y'all are arguing about all this shit. I came on here last week with all the speeding issues. UNC had a student die and 3 football players involved in an over 120 mile an hour crash. A Florida football player got arrested for driving 150 miles an hour on the interstate with his lights turned off. An Alabama football player went over 120 miles an hour being chased by the police with over an ounce of marijuana in the car. Georgia football player died in an accident where people were driving over 100 miles an hour at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's everywhere. So y'all can throw stones about which program's worse or whatever. There are kids driving at high rates of speeds in really, really fast cars right now, and they shouldn't be. Point. End of point. Done. Continue. Go ahead.
No, yeah, just to kind of recap what I was saying is like 2021 to 2022, I think the big difference was Stetson Bennett started a full season, had that going into 2022. You returned a lot of your key offensive players. Todd Monken got another year at Georgia. You saw a major jump from red zone. Again, you went from 50th in the country to 1st in the country from 2021 to 2022. This year, you're top 25. Not great. You were not a top 5 red zone offense like you probably should have been with the number of attempts that you had. But again, Carson Beck, full season starting this last year, coming back again. A lot of key returning pieces. Mike Bobo has another season as well coming into this year.
Any thoughts on this stat? Because my next question is, how do you improve on this? And I have some thoughts, but any thoughts on the general stat?
I mean, I think obviously it's a bad look when you progressively get worse in the red zone as the season goes on. I mean, there's a multitude of things you can contribute that to. I think the fact that you didn't really have Brock Bowers available for the large part of that back half of the season probably adds to that. Lad McConkey was also banged up as well. So your offensive production, or the bell cows of your offensive production throughout that season, weren't necessarily there. But it's not a great statistic. It's also not one where I go, ooh, that's bad. It was also like you played some really tough games toward that back. You played Tennessee on the road, you played Tech on the road, which gave you a tough matchup than you were hoping for, but still a very tough game. And then you played Alabama, one of the teams that made the playoff last year. So you have to imagine production dips off at some point.
All right, so that brings us to our next discussion, right, which is how do they improve when they're down in the red zone? First and foremost, great teams run the ball into the end zone. That's like number one. That's like football 101. You want to be great in the red zone? Be able to run the ball into the end zone, period, point blank. Be able to run the ball when the box gets small. That's an important part. The other thing about this is that you mentioned Brock going out last year, and even when Brock's healthy, when Brock was healthy, who was Georgia's number one red zone threat? A tight end, particularly in the middle of the field, where double coverage can oftentimes get brought. What Georgia hasn't had in a couple of years is a healthy X receiver that can go up and really dominate in the red zone and one-on-one opportunities. I think Colby Young's addition to this roster could really increase. I'm not going to say it's going to drastically change. You're not going to go from 23rd in the country to back to the first in the country in terms of red zone efficiency. However, I think things get made much easier when I can just say downset hut, chuck it up to the 6'5" guy that's going to go win a one-on-one.
Or to add to that, a running back that can dominate between the tackles.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. Last year, Georgia averaged 2.98 yards per carry in the red zone, which was 51st in the country.
Yeah, that's your main problem. You want to get better at scoring in the red zone. Be better at running the football. This offensive line that we all talk about, okay, myself really included, get your ass better in the red zone, period. When they got more people than you, be able to push them into the end zone and let's score some daggone points. So yeah, that's the way to go about improving there. What are some other areas of growth for this Georgia offense? Do you have any? I have one right off the top of my head that I know that they got to get better at, and it's across the board. They have got to get better at making the first free defender miss.
Yes.
Wide receivers, running backs, especially running backs. Okay, Kendall Milton had some great long stretch runs last year. Everyone remembers them, but tell me when was the last time you saw a Georgia running back make a safety miss and then take it 60? Because I can't off the top of my head remember when was the last time a Georgia ball carrier made somebody miss or broke a tackle and then took it to the house. And my brain and your brains, like we found out last night, does this constantly where, oh, that one, boom, right into my head. I can't see it. I don't see it. I haven't seen a Georgia ball carrier make the first defender freely miss on a routinely basis in a while.
Yeah, I can only think of
Swift.
I can only think of times where they came close and they got chased down. Like those are the only scenarios that I could really think of. I couldn't tell you of the last time they had like a breaker.
The first one that pops in my head, and I don't know if this is the most recent, but if it is, that's not a good look, is the Peach Bowl against Ohio State where Kenny McIntosh gets a wide open hole, cuts all against the safety, and they trips right before he gets in the end zone. That's where one.
That's a backside cut off standard inside zone.
Correct.
Like that's available often. So yeah, I mean the Kenny Mack, the DeAndre Swifts of the world.
I think the most recent one, and this is really bad if it is the most recent one, it's Zeus's touchdown against Florida to open the game in 2020.
Yep, jump cut outside, took it 80.
Yeah. That's the last big breaker touchdown I can remember.
Pretty obvious sign of improvement needed.
Yeah.
Right there for Georgia. Do we have any other ones offensively? And look, don't do the deep ball accuracy. We all know that. Everyone and their mama knows they got to get better at throwing the deep ball. Any other ones?
This isn't really a statistical or something you can measure statistically, but make your layups. There were a lot of times last year where, not to do it, but the deep ball, maybe Carson Beck overthrew it, or he threw a good pass and it was dropped. Like things like that you can't have, or just drops in general or missed assignments. Like you can't really have that if you want to be an elite offense. Just make your layups. Like Kirby Smart talks about that all the time. If you have a wide open play that should go for 60 yards, make it go for 60 yards.
I think that, and this could really help too with the red zone conversions, is that when Georgia gets into that 35-yard line on their own field to the opponent's other 35-yard line, like get better in that range of getting the ball, pushing the ball. Not again, like this isn't even just hitting your deep shots, but like help yourself out a little bit by because I felt like there were so many times last year where Georgia got into that range and the field felt like it was shrinking for them and things were becoming like a lot more cluttered for them and things didn't feel as smooth until that range. But then when they got past that, things kind of even out. Like get deeper into the field quicker.
You want to be better in the red zone, be better in the green zone.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to get better scoring from the 20, don't get in there. Score from the 35.
Yeah.
That's something that Georgia has had a problem with in the last handful of years. It's just, though their yards per play metrics are great, their amount of chunk plays is not, right? They're doing a great job of ripping off 7, 12, 18-yard gains. You got to have more. We just scored. Here's the ball back. Got to have more of that moving forward. So I'm with you. Any other areas of improvement?
Nothing I could think
They
of.
haven't been turnover prone the last several years.
Yeah.
So
No
it's not
stupid
something we need to look
penalties or
away.
anything.
Yeah, they don't get any of those.
Right.
The operation's smooth at this point.
Yeah.
Play
There's
calling's
nothing
fine.
play calling seems good.
Third down is like almost always manageable.
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, it's really nitpicking when you get.
You
down
really
to it.
are.
Yeah.
You're really, really nitpicking this roster, particularly on the offensive side of the football at this point. All right. UGA's home winning streak is up to 25 straight games. The last time they lost a home game, your boy was getting married and was not in attendance. So that's probably a little coinky-dink. So don't ever pull my credentials. You'll lose a football game.
Man, I was in high school last time Georgia lost a home game.
That's crazy. So they have 6 home games this year. They will be heavily favored in all 6 of those football games. You would presume this record.
I think it's 5.
It's 5?
No, it's 6. I'm tripping.
That's
You're
6.
right. My bad.
6 home games this year. You would presume this record goes, or this streak goes up to 31 games. Do you know the record?
Oh, it's in the 50s. I think
58.
I
You know
think
who has
Miami did it.
It is Miami.
From like the late 90s.
Miami did not lose a home game from 1985 to 1994.
Yeah, that's insane.
A decade straight of beating ass inside the Orange Bowl.
It's all about the.
So based on this slate this year, they definitely should extend the streak to 31. Here's the slate at home this year. Shouts out to our friends and family that have season tickets. You're going to get to watch Tennessee Tech at noon, Auburn, Mississippi State, Tennessee, UMass at noon, Georgia Tech likely at noon. Okay, well that'll be an ABC game.
Just hold on to
You
them
might
till
catch a 3:30 slate there. Hold on to 2025. Don't sell them tickets yet. But those 6 games, gentlemen, definitely should win them all.
Yeah.
Of those 6, who's a sneaky team got to watch out for might end this streak at home? Who is the 2019 South Carolina of this bunch?
For me, it's Georgia Tech.
I was going to say the same thing.
I've
And
got 3.
I thought I was unique in saying it was Georgia Tech.
I mean, because like I think the obvious, I shouldn't say obviously per pick. Because
Most people say Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean it's off the heels
I
of the
don't
Ole Miss
count that
game.
as a sleeper though, because
No,
that's what everybody's
that's
going
why
to say.
it's not a sleeper.
Auburn would be the other option. Because I mean, it's just your traditional Deep South's oldest rivalry. Anything can happen in those types of games. The only thing that doesn't make me want to say that is what Georgia has done to them at home over the years.
Correct. And the
Georgia
fact
has
that
dominated.
Well, and the fact that you had a really close game with them last year, and you'd have to imagine Kirby Smart's not going to let that happen twice.
So look, man, like Kirby's beating the shit out of Auburn at home, like you just said, like verbatim is just beating their ass. But that was Gus Malzahn, a very tricky offense, and we've told you over and over again, tricks don't work against Georgia defenses.
Yeah.
Like your idea that you're going to mess with eye discipline, get out of here. Like you're not doing that against a Georgia football team coached by Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, and at those times, Dan Lanning. Like you got those 3 minds, gap assignments and alignment is not going to be a problem. That's what Malzahn's offense is predicated off of. We're going to trick you first before we beat you second. Those things don't work. Harsin, absolute joke, fire show, right? Like, of course, Harsin didn't have a chance against Kirby Smart, home or away. Duh. But Hugh Freeze put together, if I say Hugh Freeze put together the best game plan of an opponent last year against Georgia, would you balk at that?
Excluding Alabama, yeah.
I think he had a better one than Bama. Bama had a better coaching adjustment in game. But in terms of we came into this game thinking we're going to beat you doing this, no one executed a game plan better than Auburn against Georgia last year.
Yeah, I would say like Alabama just like had the better day against Georgia. Like you played clean, like they played the perfect game against you. Whereas
And
like
the coaching adjustment to go from a 5-down mint front to a 4-down, 2-high safety look by Nick Saban in that football game after one scoring drive from Georgia where they walked the ball down the field. Kendall Milton scores on a 20-yard run, and it's like, here we go, Georgia's here. They make a defensive adjustment, and Georgia looks stagnant for the next 2.5 quarters. That was the biggest adjustment. That was not a coming into the game with a game plan. Auburn did that. Auburn's run plan was all predicated off of we're going to run the quarterback for the first time, and we're going to run the quarterback that doesn't run. They ran Peyton Thorne in that football game out of 12 personnel and mixed in 13 personnel and started really, really attacking RPOs and really, really doing things and even getting vertical against Georgia in particular spots that made it difficult. It wouldn't surprise me if Hugh Freeze comes to Athens and at least looks competitive for 2 quarters. And at that point, What keeps him from making it a 4-quarter football game and giving you a scare? That's the only thing. But I'm with y'all. They have dominated Auburn, but this is a very new Auburn.
I mean, it's a new Auburn, but it's also Auburn hasn't won in Athens since 2005. Like,
Which
it's not
predates Malzahn.
Yeah, it's not like it's a Malzahn or a Kirby Smart thing. It's just like Auburn doesn't usually win in that. Now, they're eventually going to have to win and end that streak. And I mean, you make a good case that Hugh Freeze might be the guy to do so, but I don't think that this is necessarily, again, going off of the roster that Auburn has is severely, severely handicapped in comparison to Georgia. And the fact that Kirby Smart doesn't draw two bad consecutive games unless your name is Nick Saban. Yeah. Like, there's never been a season where Kirby Smart has a bad game against you, or like, even in the same season where Kirby Smart has a bad game against one team and then follows up with another bad game the next year or the next time you face off. So I think Georgia's going to handle Auburn fine.
I would also say, like, how creative can you really get with that offense and that Auburn football team? Like, last year you made it work because, again, it was still relatively new. Like, you being at Auburn, you had that caveat where you were able to accomplish that. Coming into this year, like, can you top what you did last year and come up with another creative game plan that maybe you can catch Georgia off guard for 2 quarters and you can ride that momentum on the road and take it to 4 quarters? I don't know. I think that there's like that. I think the offense of itself, like the personnel and everything, I think that handicaps his ability.
Georgia also shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's
an uncharacteristic Dejon Edwards fumble in that football game. A tremendous play by the safety from Auburn to pick that ball off.
Yep.
Those were the 2 turnovers in that football game very early in that one too.
Oscar Delp fumbled too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. That one was called back. That one was reviewed.
You're thinking of the Brock Bowers
one got called back.
All right. I put Georgia Tech on this list. I know y'all talked about him already. Buster Faulkner scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Buster Faulkner scares me if I'm an opponent. I think he puts defenses in positions to do things repetitively that they're not good at and they don't want to do. They went vertical on Georgia more than any other team last year. They ran RPOs and with extensions and explosives off of that more than anybody last year. And I think that if you told me, here's the recipe to beating Georgia this year, you got to have 4 scoring drives that all go 12-plus plays. They all take a long time. You limit their possessions to 6, and you beat them. Georgia Tech could good enough in year 2 with that same quarterback in Haynes King. They're good enough to maybe do that. But listen to what I'm saying. Put together 4 12-play drives, scoring drives. What? That's really hard to do for anybody. So, yeah, it's going to be really, really hard to do, but they can do that. And on top of that, I have confidence in Buster Faulkner's ability to design explosives against this defense that he watched practice and play for 2 straight years and kind of knows the ins and outs of. Not kind of does.
Yeah, and I mean, not even to mention that, like the place where it is at the season, where it's like at the end, where you're just coming off of your hardest run of Texas, Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee. You get UMass, and it's kind of like, oh, sigh of relief, we made it. We got to focus on, SEC championship or playoff aspirations or whatever. I mean, there's a real world that Georgia Tech comes in there just willing to like light your world up. I mean, they're the team. They've beaten Georgia more in Athens than any other team in the last 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, now it's 2 times, but
going to your point too, though, about like what you were saying of you have to do 4 drives of 12-plus plays. The thing too about that, like, it's not even like taking a big chunk of time going 12 plays and scoring. Because you're playing Georgia's defense, like you have to make multiple 3rd down conversions more than likely on that drive too. And you're going up against a defense that typically is really, really good on 3rd down. So like you have to overcome not only just doing the initial feat, doing the initial accomplishment, but also overcoming anything on 3rd down and converting on those.
Now you get this team a little bit like midway through the schedule, but does Mississippi State being brand new under Jeff Levy like cause any potential case of fear for anything? Like just the fear of the unknown?
I think the fact that that game is before Texas, before you have to go to Austin on the road, might be the
letdown game.
A letdown game. I don't know necessarily even if Mississippi State plays one of their best games and Georgia plays their worst, that's going to result in a loss in Athens.
Just too much of a talent discrepancy.
I think too, like an advantage Georgia has this year is like because you get so few home games. Or like you get so few like big time home games. I think that your team probably wants to capitalize off of those opportunities, and the fan base wants to capitalize off of those opportunities. So like I think you can almost like wipe away this thought of like maybe the team just doesn't show up at home this week. Yeah,
and like to look back, like the last time Georgia lost at home, it took your starting quarterback's worst game of his career, and Jake Fromm, he threw 3 picks that game. Your special teams had an awful day. They returned a punt, I believe. Rodrigo Blankenship missed 2 field goals. Like with the exception of the defense playing elite, like every facet of your game failed in that. So I don't see all facets with the exception of one failing on this Georgia team. I think the roster's too good, and I think they're too disciplined. So I think that's the avenue you would have to for a Mississippi State team to beat Georgia and Athens, and I just don't see it happening.
Does Carson Beck have a multiple turnover game?
No, he does not.
Not a single one?
No.
It's going to be really hard to upset them. Mm-hmm. When their quarterback does not put the ball at risk,
let me take that back.
Really hard to beat.
Let me take that back. He does not have a multiple interception game. He had a multiple turnover game against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, fumble
pick.
Yeah.
He might have had another, but I don't think so.
It's really hard to beat a team that's going to be favored by multiple touchdowns if their quarterback doesn't put the ball at risk.
Dude, I saw this stat today. I can't really fully explain it, but I'll do it to the best of my abilities. But basically, you know those 4 quadrant graphs where it says, like, if you're up here, you're really good. If you're down here, you're really bad. So this person or this website created a graph that told you how successful quarterbacks were against defenses that disguise coverages. It's like every snap where a defense disguised a coverage, how successful was a quarterback. Dude, Carson Beck was in a realm by himself. He was alone compared, like everybody else was around the center, and then it's literally Carson Beck at the top by himself.
Yeah, that guy is a processor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we talk about quarterbacks and we use all kinds of different words, leader, intangibles, processor. That's what that guy is. It's the one word I've had for him since he started starting at Georgia is, golly, he sees the field really well. He processes information at an extremely high rate. Not scared about Tennessee Tech. Not scared about UMass.
No,
I don't think
no.
So.
Andy Isabella hanging out for UMass no more, right?
No,
great pool.
Minutemen do not.
You like that pull?
It's a great pool.
Yeah.
I remember watching him thinking, like, holy shit. Like,
you know why I know Andy Isabella's name? He was in the first draft class that I covered for NFL Mocks.
I do remember his name being a hot.
He had like 100
round draft pick.
He had like 100 receiving yards.
119.
Yeah. That was also the Justin Fields rush for 100.
Will you look that up, see how close I am to that real number for me? I know that's a weird ask, but will you
look up Justin Fields? I think he rushed for 114 yards in that game. The suspense.
The suspense is killing me.
I'll look up the...
Yeah, you do the Justin Fields one.
Oh, it's the same box score, boys.
I'm doing
I got it.
His game logs.
Oh, you're going to Stats References doing the game logs. He hasn't really panned out for the Cardinals. I think he's actually already been traded.
Dude, he had 219.
What? 219?
219, 2 tuds.
Boy.
I mean, you were one number
defensive
off.
Defensive backs coach fired.
Fired. Jake Fromm was 5 for 506 yards. Justin Fields was 5 for 821 yards on combined, or along with 100 yards rushing even. So
over under 3.5, the number of defensive backs that came off the field and go, damn, coach, I didn't realize he was that fast.
Over.
Gotta be. The whole core was
maybe
like,
not. Maybe didn't say that directly to Kirby, but definitely said it amongst themselves.
Damn, that white boy can run. Hypotheticals. Should we do this?
Ooh,
I love hypotheticals.
I like hypotheticals.
All right, so here's the hypothetical. Georgia runs the slate this year. Georgia goes 16-0. Okay, they win the number 1 overall bid. They win the SEC championship game. They go on and clean the slate in the 3 playoff games. They go 16-0. If they do this, gentlemen, you have to make the decision of whether or not Georgia going 16-0 this year, for the first time ever in a 12-team playoff, will that be the best college football team ever assembled? Yes or no?
It's not that black and white. It's the greatest accomplishment ever by a college football team. When you look at this schedule, you look at what was laid out, and you go 16-0 through that, you win the national title. I mean, that's the greatest accomplishment ever. I don't know if that automatically makes you the greatest team ever.
So I have a little bit of a two-pronged discussion about this, at least in my opinion, okay? First and foremost, if Georgia runs the table this year, in terms of the best ever discussion, they will have done something that I believe no other team has even come close to, right? If they beat Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, win an SEC championship game, win their Elite 8 game, win a Final Four game, and win the Natty, that will be 7 opponents that they will have beaten that you would presume would be ranked inside the top 10, most of those inside the top 5 by the time they play them. Okay, that's unprecedented. 7 wins over top 10 opponents in one singular season. Oh my God, it's not even close. I don't think anybody's gotten anywhere near that. So yeah,
I think LSU did it in 2019.
Did they do that?
I think so.
Look
now, obviously, like Texas didn't finish in the top 10, but they were a top 10 team.
When they played them. When they played them is all that matters to me.
Right.
But either way, 7 in one singular season is a lot, okay, to overcome. So I don't think we've seen anything like that. But to me, the conversation of are you the greatest college football team ever doesn't just stop or end and begin with what did you do that one year where you win a national title and go undefeated. Do you have anything for me?
LSU did.
It's counted when they played them, though, based on what I
that's
just looked
fine.
at.
Yeah, LSU did
It's
that.
7.
It's 7? Okay, that's a damn good schedule that they did. So they would be on par with only one other team that we know of in the mind of ours to have beaten that many top 10 football programs in one singular season. So, but the conversation of are you the greatest of all time is a little bit deeper than that for me. I think the way that history looks on this, at least the way I look at this, is how great were you in your one season? Were you purely dominant? Did you go about a run and did you do your season of dominance like everybody else? And was it that like supremely you're the best? Wow, you beat the shit out of everybody else. That's great. But when we look at your football program, when we look at your roster, when we look at your team 10 years from now, 15 years from now, did the NFL invest in your roster at the rate at which you were supremely talented against all these other teams that we're looking at historically? So who are the teams that I'm talking about here, right? The 2001 Miami Hurricanes, to me, are always one of these teams that is historically listed as, God dang, they were great, right? 2019 LSU, already mentioned it. 2021 Georgia, is in this discussion of, holy shit, that was a really good football team. 2013 Florida State is in this discussion. 2009 Alabama is in this discussion for me. 2001 Miami, guys, they had 17 first-round draft picks eventually on that roster. Now, scattered over 4 different drafts, nonetheless. Some of those guys were backups in that year, but that roster, top to bottom, 17 first-rounders, 38 total draft picks. The 2019 LSU Tigers team had 5 first-round draft picks in one class. The next year followed up with 3 more. That would be 8 total just in 2 drafts. Georgia had 15 draft picks in the 2022 NFL draft. There's going to be a litany. I think you said the number's up to 38 already just since then.
33. So
they're going to crush the 38 total when it's all said and done that Miami set in 2001. That 2013 FSU team, like 22 NFL football players on both sides of the football, but they don't go 70 deep like that Miami 01 team does. 2009 Alabama, just one position, or not the whole roster, but just one position. For example, they had Rolando McClain and Dante Hightower, and Dante Hightower wasn't even playing. So that's how good that roster was in 2009. So that's kind of how I look at this. And if they run the slate, they've done one thing in one season that nobody else can match except for maybe 2019 LSU. But this team will have played one more college football playoff game. So I'm going to give them the nod in that hypothetical discussion. Now, this NFL evaluation, we ran through the numbers a couple weeks ago.
They could have 20 drafts.
They could have 20 draft picks this year from the University of Georgia if everybody comes out. So, yeah, if they run the slate, man, they're going to do it. They're going to be named. People are going to do it. When I say they going to do it, people are going to tell the tale of this being the greatest team ever.
They'll absolutely be up for the discussion of it. I think there's one metric that it's somewhat of an unfair metric that really plays a major factor into you being, quote, the greatest team of all time. And it's the aura. Like that,
how you did it.
Yeah, that 2019 LSU team was so much fun to watch. I mean, like even the things that they did outside of it, the Joe Burrow thing where he's average Joe, he's from a transfer to now he's the greatest college football quarterback of all time. The get the gat thing they did in the White House, Coach O's Go Tigers.
Having the Loch Ness Monster as your head coach probably helped too.
Yeah, all of those things added to kind of the mystique of that 2019 LSU team, where I think that Georgia kind of lacks that in a sense. Like Kirby Smart is not going to be the personality that Ed Orgeron is. Carson Beck doesn't really strike me as having this legendary story as Joe Burrow, where he's a transfer, he's adopted by LSU, things such as that. Like I don't see kind of the swagger that you saw with a Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson at the receiver position. I think Georgia's got a loaded receiver room, but I don't know if there's necessarily guys like that that are going to kind of stand out and make that appearance. So I think that's where you're going to get the hang up of saying people still saying LSU's greater, just because the aura of this Georgia team doesn't strike me as something that's like, wow, that was a super fun team to watch. Like, everyone gives that 21 defense credit because of just how smash mouth they were and how much they dominated you. But on the other side of the ball, like that offense, it kind of, I don't want to say limped through the season, but it was obvious that the defense was the star of the show that year.
Well, and 21's Georgia team has a loss on the record. So.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of a way that this team could have aura, and I think that the way that it would happen is, like you said, that Carson Beck doesn't have this story of he transferred and he won a national title. But I think that him staying and him remaining at Georgia is a big story right now, because it doesn't happen in college football anymore. Like, when Joe Burrow transferred and won a national title, like, that's when the transfer portal was like, oh, that's a thing. Like, this is happening. He capitalized off that. He did the right thing. Carson Beck is doing the inverse of it. And so if he were to go and run the table at Georgia, you win a Heisman, those types of things, I think that does draw a lot of attention.
I agree. I think the story is definitely there. I just don't know if Carson Beck has a swagger that Joe Burrow has.
And I think, honestly,
I was debating whether or not I was going to lob.
Oh, don't do it.
My off-air theory onto air.
It's not.
I'm damn sure close to doing it when you make shit comments like that.
It's a personality thing.
Swagger.
It's personality. It's not. It has nothing to do with appearance. Now, it helps. It helps Joe Burrow that he is Joe Burrow. And
I think that what helped LSU more than just that is LSU was fresh for all college football fans at that time. Like, you mean to tell me that Alabama and Clemson aren't the favorites right now to win a national title? Even Georgia in 2021. You mean to tell me that Georgia's now back on the map, that maybe they're going to topple Nick Saban and them, like they're going to be the new kings? Georgia probably doesn't feel this way coming into this year because Georgia isn't new. Georgia isn't fresh. Like, Georgia is the top dog in college football.
See? Damn comments. Beck has that Napoleon Dynamite swagger. See what I'm talking about? Here's my theory. I think people talk about Carson Beck the way that they do, and they don't talk about Carson Beck as if he's 6'5", 230 pounds, completed 73% of his balls, can make every throw in America, and he's an NFL top 5 draft pick. I don't think anybody talks about him like that. They all talk about him like maybe Carson will be this, as if we all don't know it to be true, which we all know it to be true, but we don't talk about it like that. The national correspondence about Carson is the way that it is because he is not drop dead handsome like every other first round quarterback is. That's my theory. That's my only theory. He doesn't have this outgoing personality. He doesn't smoke cigars in post game. He just smiles and waves, boys. He's the penguin from Madagascar. That's all he is. He smiles and waves, and he plays great friggin' football, and nobody talks about him because he don't look like a GQ model. That's my theory.
I think you're accurate on everything except you base it down to looks and not personality.
They can be one and the same. You can be really, really great looking and be a famous hot dude and not be anything worth of a personality. You can do that. If you don't believe me, look at Jake Butt on the Big Ten Network.
Jeez. But I
might have a list of people that I want their jobs, and Jake Butt's at the top.
But it's also not like we don't talk about like, hey, Jake Butt, one of the best.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Best announcers ever.
But I'm just saying, man. People get elevated based off the fact that they are handsome, and people get I'm not gonna say knocked because they're not, but they just don't get the benefit of the doubt. That's all.
But it's also like if you're not super handsome, you have to have a super outgoing personality and things such as that. And I don't think that is who Carson Beck is.
No,
we've talked about like Carson Beck is a very like business oriented guy. He's introverted. He's introverted.
Yeah, like I think like Stetson was not this smashingly handsome fellow, but he had a great on-field personality.
He had a swagger to him.
Yeah.
He had some moxie. He didn't have swag, he had moxie.
Yeah.
There it is.
And that's what drew people towards him. Where Carson Beck, we're still feeling it out a little bit.
The dude threw for almost 4,000 yards, 73% completion, led the nation in third down conversion
rate. He's an insane. I'm not saying
don't feeling it out.
No, I'm saying.
What the fuck are we talking about,
brother? I'm not saying. I'm not saying I'm feeling out how good is Carson Beck. People are still gauging like, who is this guy? Like, who is Carson Beck? Like, not Georgia quarterback. Like, who is he as a person? I think people are still feeling that out a little bit. And I think he kind of was too last year as a quarterback.
So, thoughts on my take?
I can't deny it yet.
I don't know if I agree with it.
You bring some compelling evidence to the table.
The timing on that, brother. Oh, man. That's
made me grab the mic, dude.
Player of the day?
Let's do it.
Oh, let me pull it up. Keep on going.
Go ahead, pull it up. You're my biggest pushback in-house about this he's not a hot guy theory. I think being hot just bumps you up multiple spots.
It certainly helps, but I don't think people who aren't hot are necessarily lessened or
if he didn't have leg tats, would he be?
Good Lord.
Man's got leg tats, bro. They're kind of sick, though.
Calf sleeves are kind of tough. I can't lie.
Calf sleeves kind of tough. Except for when you have to wear a literal calf sleeve because you tore your calf. That's not tough.
No.
All right. This is the best tackle in America, in my opinion. Okay.
Offensive or defensive?
Offensive.
Okay.
Offensive tackle. This is Zyaire Addison.
Dang, you threw
Zyaire Addison has, I think, a 36 and a half arm length. 36 and a half inches.
Wow.
I think he's north of 86 inches in wingspan, despite the fact that he's 6'5". So he's barely 6'5", and he has a 7-footer's wingspan. That's who we're about to watch. Oh, by the way, J. Will, Hooper.
Oh, I'm in.
Hooper.
I'm in.
It's a power forward playing tackle, and you will see this immediately off the first couple of clips. Now, these first couple of clips is why I believe he is the best tackle in America, because I ain't got no high schoolers doing this shit.
Pulling tackle.
Yeah, buddy. The skip pull on this, the amount of ground covered. That's a what?
That's a tackle?
That's a tackle, sir. That's a tackle.
Ooh. Gee.
Doing that. That's a tackle.
That's terrifying.
And the next like 3 or 4 of these clips are exactly like this.
Dude, he's like 15.
Look at his arms.
He's like 15% body fat.
Look at his arms. Look at the feet, man. This is what big man twitch looks like. Look how rapidly these feet come out of the ground and get back in them.
He didn't fall either. He didn't get on the ground.
I'm telling you, bro, this is the one, okay?
He's like 15% body fat, dude.
Yeah, dude. I wouldn't even give him 15. I say about 8.5, 9, 10% body fat. There's very little body fat on this dude. He's playing at about 285 right here, 290. He is not a like college ready weight, but it doesn't really matter because I know
put it on.
I know he's going to be a supreme athlete when he gets to college. I mean, the twitch in the feet, dude, are stupid on this kid. This is another pull clip, I'm pretty sure. The pulling clips on this guy are absurd. The ankle dexterity and the ability to bend are, the Lord. Pop in the pads, you're going to go get him.
Dude,
one.
as soon as that head turned,
yeah, slab of ribs, you know you're going to get you one. I can't say enough about the ceiling of the football player, especially knowing that he's going to continue to add weight.
You're not making that tackle, buddy.
No, you're not. And the fight to finish on the kid is
good
superb.
Run, though, by the way. Credit to the running back.
Yep. Not here for the color wave on these jerseys, by the way.
Very
blue, navy
style.
Blue and green, never going to work for you.
Yeah, that's what Creekview wore.
Oh, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Give me some pull.
Ooh.
Stick it up in there. Finish.
Come on. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to keep watching highlights.
All right, so I have said this is my number one OT. He's 1A, and then 1B is David. That poor safety. Look at him looking at the ref like, hey, man, he can't do that. Look at the end of this. Watch number 2. He's like, hey, that's excessive blocking. He can't do that. What the heck, man?
Oh, that's tough.
Watching 4 quarters of that shit, I bet he was trying to snitch.
The strangest thing about him so far from what I'm watching, it doesn't look like he explodes off contact. Mm-hmm. It looks like he just attaches to you and
then finishes with the feet.
Will not let you go.
You know what?
I don't know. What would you rather have? Someone who just blows you off the ball, or someone who can consistently drive you and not
I definitely want to see thunder in the hands. Don't get me wrong. But here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see you making massive contact on the high school level because you're a leaner. And great, you're 330 pounds and you put your helmet on somebody and he exploded. But guess what? When we're in this body positioning, we have lost. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have lost on the college level. I don't care if it finishes in high school. When we're here, we lose in college. But when we make contact and we roll our hips and then we're finishing with our feet like this, guess what? Every great block in college looks like that right there. Every great block in college looks like that. Very rarely do we have the block in college where we roll over somebody and then finish on top of them. That just doesn't happen. Defensive linemen are way too good. And when you play chest over toes, you get snatched down in college really, really quickly. So I would honestly prefer both. I want to see, like, once we meet in our hands, I want to see thunderous hands. I want to see violent hands. I don't want to see pop in the pads, right? Linebacker, pop in the pads. Safety, pop in the pads. Defensive lineman, offensive lineman, thunderous hands.
Yeah.
I want to see explosive hands.
There's no head snapping here, which I've noticed.
Might be something worth noting.
Oh, wait a minute. That was pretty fun.
Did you get you some?
That was pretty fun.
Did you get you some on the second level right here? There's some head snap in the hands right here.
Oh, that linebacker. That was a double team. That poor Timmy, dude.
Poor Timmy. Independent hands. Let's see what this looks like. I bet he stabs with the outside hand, shows a false one, brings it back, and punches. There's the false hand with the left, and there's the recovery with both hands. I don't count that one. I think every young offensive lineman nowadays has got a false left hand from the left side. Give me David Sanders while I talk about David Sanders real quick. David Sanders has been a very interesting evaluation for me. I don't know why I looked at my watch as if I got one on. David Sanders has been a very interesting evaluation for me from jump, because when I first saw him, I forget what high school he's at there. Providence Day, I believe, is where he's at. When I first saw him, he was a rising junior. He was playing his sophomore year of high school football, and he was like 245 pounds, guys. He was very, very thin. Very, very thin. Almost looked like he would convert better as a college defensive end than he would as an offensive tackle, because one thing that really concerns me is when I see you as a 14-year-old and you're great and you're big, tall, and long and you're thin. That's okay, you're thin. We're going to put weight on you. We got time to put weight on you. Your sophomore year, you're still thin. Your junior year, you're still thin. You're like 265. Well, now David Sanders is about 285 pounds. When he's walking around to college campuses right now, he's carrying 280 pounds. That is perfect. We're fine with that. But when you're 250 and you're 250 and you're 250 and you're 250, then you're Joshua Petty. All right. And I don't mean to take shots at Josh Petty, but Josh Petty is not going to end up at a place like Georgia, I don't believe, because Josh Petty doesn't look like he may ever be 315 pounds. David Sanders is going to one day be 310 pounds, 315 pounds. We've seen signs of that growth. If I don't ever see it, I can't project it. We finally have started to see it from David. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at this highlight film. I am a higher projection ceiling on Addison than I am David Sanders. And you can see what I'm talking about with the thinness of the frame. Yeah. He's really, really thin. Okay? And like I say, he's probably put on 20 pounds since this tape right here. Dad played in the league. We're going to see some athleticism here. Oh, my God. Oh, that's violence. Run that back.
Yeah,
you didn't see him absolutely murder this space defender over here?
Oh.
Landed on top of him, too.
That's pee and blood.
Now, you talking about playing Timmys and Tylers. They play a lot of them. Okay. A little inside twerk, using the leverage on the inside hand right there. This is like, for example, this is I'm pretty sure this is Athens Academy.
Yeah.
Athens Academy didn't win a game this year. I think they were 0-11. I think.
I think he was. You see him throwing the hand up.
Boy, Timmy made a play though, didn't he? Linebacker came through and made this joint. Oh yeah, he thought he was going to get a holding call, didn't he? He's trying to get him one.
These guys look a little. Ooh.
That's the biggest kid probably on the tape right there.
Yeah,
I would imagine that kid's probably 270 that he just bitched.
He did not see him coming.
Now, one thing I will say in the comparisons between the two, David is a much cleaner prospect from a fundamental standpoint. Okay, feet, hat, and hands on this kid are going to require a lot less training and development than a kid like Zyaire, mostly due to the fact that this dude's dad played NFL football at tackle. So that helps. That will help your development in terms of technique and fundamentals. But I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen a single clip like the first couples I saw from Zyaire.
No.
In terms of, wait, what was that? We haven't seen a what was that moment here from David yet. But I would take the high floor of this kid versus the ceiling of Addison's. You kind of have to weigh that discussion in this battle if you were to have to be forced to pick between one of these two. Now, I have some... That's a scrimmage.
I want to see.
They got Guardian caps on.
I want to see what he does against
Dudes.
Quality competition.
Dudes. And here's the thing about that. And I know it's an Under Armour event and they're one-on-ones and they don't have pads on. That kid's dominated the Under Armour circuit since he's been in it. That kid's dominated one-on-one circuits since he's been in it. Even at 250 pounds when he was doing them. Last year he came to the Atlanta event. Like Justice Terry's out there. It's like a bunch of dudes here in the South. Jordan Ross, this at Tennessee now, is out there. A bunch of really, really highly touted edge rushers, Xavier Hardy, all these guys. He went to that event, and you couldn't tell me he was a pound over 255 at that event last year. And he more than held his own. And you could see how light and quick and violent the feet were. But you're doing that at 255 pounds. That's great. I got to try to evaluate you with 50 more pounds on your frame. Good news is we've cut that in half now. I'm going to get senior tape of David Sanders at 285, 280 pounds. That makes me feel much, much more comfortable about this projection because weight is not a guarantee. Just because everyone puts on weight, that's not true. Kevin Durant never put it on. Some of these guys never put it on. Jay Will could eat Burger King every single day of his life. He would just get a gut in his belly. He would not get bigger. Okay? Some of these people just do it that way. I can look at a bowl of chili and I'm putting 4 pounds on. That's just me. Kirby, you got problems putting muscle mass on?
Yes and no. I don't put it on rapidly and it takes a lot of eating for me to do it, but I can do it.
So you're more of a Joe Thomas, where Joe Thomas naturally is 235 pounds.
Yes.
To play at 300, he had to wake up at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night and eat food.
I played at 200 in high school.
That's absurd to me. I bet your neck was real thick.
I had a thick neck.
A thick neck.
I had a little gut too. I didn't like it.
Nice. All right. I'm good. Y'all good?
Yes, good.
We'll see y'all Thursday. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. I love you. Bye.